And John, give us some information about yourself.
I'm one of the collectors here. I'm also an arcade department head, so I help put everything together. My experience goes back pretty far. My background is in electrical engineering and physics, so that helps quite a bit. I got into pinball after watching the Tilt documentary. So that was my gateway to the whole scene. So I started out with pinball, and pinball is generally my passion, but I do love arcade machines. So I started volunteering at a place called the Pinball Museum in Baltimore, Maryland, and they were able to, basically they said, well, you seem to have a basic knowledge, so go to town, and if you have any questions, just ask us. So that's one thing about getting into this, is that we have a lot of people in this hobby or profession that are very kind and friendly and ask questions, answer questions. So, that's one of the things we'll start out with, is saying, ask questions. During this whole time, ask questions. Afterwards, ask questions. Go online and ask questions. Ask tons of questions so that you can learn how to do this too, because everybody in this room can learn how to do this. It is daunting at the beginning because there's so much, but at the same time, there's so much to learn and so much to be excited about, and we can teach you how to do it safely and make sure you don't mess up your stuff. Don't think twice about getting in there and digging in and doing some soldering.
And don't be afraid, even if you do break something, don't be afraid, because that's kind of how you learn how to not break stuff, is to break stuff. And sometimes I'm just like, let's see if this works. It blows up, and I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that again. So that's the easy way to learn. But yeah, you learn a lot of stuff, and you talk to a lot of people. A lot of collectors will tell you, hey, okay, I literally had a problem with my pinball machine, and I went on a forum because I didn't know what was going on with mine, and I went on the pinball forum within minutes. All these answers, hey, try this, disconnect this, try this. And I found the one guy that had the answer, and I tried his suggestion, and it worked just fine. So thanks to that guy, that was cool. You ask questions, you'll get help.
Yeah, and that goes for this panel as well. If you have a question, raise your hand. If we can't get to it at the time, we'll let you know and move on and try and address it at the end. But, for the most part, this is a very casual and relaxed situation. So feel free to raise your hand and ask questions.
Cool. Anybody got any questions so far? No?
No?
Okay,
right.
Cool. All right, well, you said I'm going to start with Street Fighters.
Yeah, so,
okay.
Well, I will actually start. So what I'm going to be doing while he is talking you through Street Fighter is I'm going to open up this machine, and I'm going to take out one of the circuit boards so that we can show you what's wrong with the circuit board and how to fix it. So while he's doing that, you'll see this machine getting opened, and you can look and stuff. But for the most part, I'm going to let him take the reins. And once we get to the pinball machine, I'll explain what's going on. But we're going to start with an arcade and move to a pinball, just like we did last year, for anybody who was here last year. And we will, hopefully you'll learn something. But I did see we have a question.
When you get some parts, when you find out some part that's broken, where you can find a replacement?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So there are a lot of companies that still make parts for games that you can get, or they'll have some kind of replacement part. Suzo Hap is one of the companies. There's also, what's that other one? Suzo Hap is one. Who else makes game parts? Who else does? Like Marco's Pinball. Yeah. Marco's is another place. Like Marco's does pinball stuff. So if you want to get pinball parts, they'll have a whole array of things. And they'll break it down by machine and by company and everything like that. So there's a lot of help out there. Like I said, Suzo Hap, what's the other one? I can't remember. Betson is another one. Yeah, Betson's another company. There's a bunch of companies out there. Just whatever part you're looking for, type in that, just Google that part, and they'll list you all the different places you can get that stuff.
Yeah, and the manual is your friend. The manual to a game is your friend, whether you find it online or you just are lucky enough to have a copy. The manual is your friend because the manual has part numbers. Yeah. And this is brand new. This is brand new pinball part for a 25-year-old pinball machine. So people are reproducing these things because there's a lot of really dedicated people within the arcade community that want to make sure that we can keep these games alive. So this part is brand new. It's in here in case a ramp breaks. So I have an extra because this game does go on location. You can probably see some money inside. Please don't steal. But yeah, there are lots of reproduction parts. And in fact, people are trying to reproduce chips, even specific chips like if you all know the X-Men that's around the corner. The X-Men around the corner is notorious for having the sound go bad.
Yeah.
We were able to scrounge a sound chip from another X-Men and
Which was from my board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Derek.
I had like 2 X-Men boards, and we sat in That was like 3 in the morning, wasn't it? It was like a group of us were upstairs and we're desoldering this sound chip off, and then we all go downstairs and then we try it out and we do what we have to do, and then we get it working, and all of us, yay! Like at 3 in the morning, us nerds are down there fixing arcade machines. So.
Yep. So yeah, lots of parts are available. More parts are becoming available every day. More parts are going obsolete every day at the same time. But there's a huge community out there of people dedicated towards finding replacements and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and also even some parts, like certain like plastic parts, a lot of people are coming up with 3D printer versions of that, which is something I came up with. Like when 3D printers first came out, I was like, we should just do this for arcade parts, and nobody listened to me. And then later on,
now they're doing it. Now they're doing it.
So yeah,
I remember that man right there with the blonde hair and pink mask helped me produce a part for Doctor Who that was not available with a 3D printer. So we were able to get the Doctor Who that's down on the floor right now back working in a bar because of 3D printing technology. So there's lots and lots of resources out there.
Oh, question. I have these in my house. Like, I have some in the garage, but when people come into my house, as soon as they open the door, you see like 9 arcade machines. And they're like, why do you have these in the house? I said, because it's my house. Like,
yeah.
I live here. Like, I do what I want. Like, I do what I want. It's my body. And like, so I put the arcade machines in the house. I have the other half are in the garage, and we just keep them that way. So
yeah, I keep a lot of my collection out at locations. So bars that want pinball machines. I keep it real relaxed. Have a good time. That's the kind of style that I want for my games. So if I find a location that I like going to, I will put games there. Otherwise, my basement gets very clogged.
Yeah, and me and some people were talking about opening a spot. So eventually, at some point, we're going to get some machines and end up putting them in a location that we're going to have. So eventually, we've been talking about it for like 10 years. We haven't done it yet, but it's a pipe dream. That's the thing with arcade games. It's always like it's a project. Project is the biggest word you hear in arcade scene is like, oh, that's a project. I have a Tron machine. It's a project machine. Got it 8 years ago. Haven't touched it. Got a Dragon's Lair machine like 8 or 9 years ago. Haven't touched it. I built my own. I just use that. So, but yeah, eventually the project will become a project at some point. So
yeah.
All right, so
do you want to dig into Street Fighter?
So
I will start taking
he's
this
going to
apart.
do that.
You had a question.
I had a follow-up question. So you say you keep it in locations. How much do you collect money when you keep it in those locations?
Well, you definitely need to collect money because especially with pinball machines, but also with arcade machines, the more use they get, the more likely they are to break. Yes, wear and tear is a big thing. We all the games downstairs, we pay various collectors to come, and we pay them a stipend specifically because it's really important for us to make sure these games stay maintained. And the more wear and tear we get, the more they need maintained. So yes, money unfortunately has to be a part of it, or else it becomes a very expensive hobby.
Yeah, I've taken my machines I take them in different places, and I have one here now. And my Xenon pinball that I've had working for 2 years finally stopped working here. And now I have to fix it, but now I have to pay for the parts, but luckily they give me the stipend. So now I don't concern myself with it breaking because they've paid me to bring my stuff, and just in case something happens, I have something to back it up with. So
yeah, so all the games downstairs, it's really important to us to take care of the collectors that bring them. So please treat the games nice, but play them a lot. Play them as much as you can, as often as you can. But treat them nice. Yeah,
don't abuse the games. We actually had somebody, what was a Crazy Taxi, right? They had a Crazy Taxi that got ripped in half. It's Crazy Taxi 2, High Rollers. Yeah, some people got really drunk and like they had the seat cabinet and the machine had gotten ripped apart, and so he had to get that replaced and whatnot. So just be nice to the games. Don't get drunk on them. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and work on the Street Fighter. I already got it plugged in, so. This is my Street Fighter. So this Street Fighter machine, this is the very first arcade machine I ever bought. It's my baby. I love this game. I always leave it on level 8, and apparently, okay, there we go. Oh, turn the volume down.
Yep.
There we go. Okay, I moved that door over there for a reason. The reason why is because there's nothing to block the back of this machine, and I had this game at a convention, and that door slid forward and poof, broke the back of the monitor neck and ruined it. So you got to be careful when you know something. So I learned my lesson by not keeping the door back there like that. But this is a Street Fighter machine. You know, everybody knows Street Fighter, whatever. Ken, Ray, blah 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 blah. But this is mine. It's a good game. It's got. If you've ever messed with controls, when you have some of the old school games, they have these latches, and I don't know how often they use these too much anymore, but they have these latches that you have to pop in order to get the controls done. And so when you get inside, these are the controls for it. What was that? Okay, I thought I saw something fly in there. But anyway, these are the controls for it. Your joysticks, your buttons, each button. You have all the wiring go to the buttons. Some people have a tendency to... Oh, that's why it's... Okay. Somebody said something was wrong with it earlier, but now I see why. There we go. But yeah, these quick disconnects, these ones are for the buttons. They always... You have your ground wire, which usually goes to every single one of these, and then each individual button wire goes to each switch, and it's basic binary. So once you have these on, oh, sorry. So can everybody see the buttons here?
We're going to bring the camera in.
Oh, you bring the camera over? I'm about to turn this machine around in a bit so I can show you the boards inside. There we go.
Okay, so I got it.
You got it? Okay, cool. So yeah. So these are micro switches. They are used for each of the games. These are the switches. Once you press this, this is actually activates each individual thing. So it's got the button that goes in. And these come out so you can actually clean them or replace them if you have to. And these little knobs right here, these are to remove them if you have to. So if you ever have to remove a button, this is easily replaceable, you know, do what you want to do. You can see that right there, the little threading right there, the white threading. These come off all the way, and that keeps the button in. And that's another thing you got to check out sometimes. And when you're doing maintenance on these, make sure these aren't loose, because once they get loose, these pop off and it'll actually not destroy it, but it'll mess your buttons up to the point to where you're not going to be able to use it. You'll have some problems with it. So especially if you have it on location, like he has games on location, you want to make sure your games are working in good condition to make sure people are putting money in it so you can keep it maintained. So usually just a twist thing. They still use kind of the same buttons nowadays.
I will.
What style buttons are those?
Somebody got a question?
What style buttons are there?
These ones, which ones are these? These are, I don't remember what they're called.
Are these original to the cab?
These are the ones that came with the cab.
Yeah, they're original to the cab.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're old.
Yeah.
The switch is, now the button and the switch are two separate things.
Yes.
The switch will tell you, the switch is what actually activates the button. The button itself obviously has different feels for those of you who are players who play fighting games and stuff like that, know the different feels from like a bad button to a good button.
Yeah.
So the button itself is what controls the play, and the switch itself is what controls to make sure you actually do the thing on the screen.
Yeah, these are just the basic fighting buttons. And I'm going to show you this because this is what I don't like. So I've had this machine, it's been working. I've never really had too much of a problem with it as far as controls go. But these, like I said, these are the quick disconnects. That's what these are for. And these are for you to press the buttons and do whatever you need to do with it. But sometimes people are so stupid, they will get lazy and just solder the wire directly onto it. And yes, it works, but now I have if I have a problem, now I have to take this out. I have to redo these. I have to get all the quick disconnect. I have to do it just a bunch of extra work when all I really should have to do is pop, pop. Put a new button in, pop, pop, that's it. But now I have to go through a bunch of work to get these buttons off. So it's just, don't be lazy. Sometimes don't be lazy.
Can you show the other side?
Yeah. So that's what they did.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's it soldered?
Yeah, it's soldered on there, and that's not the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be right there. The quick disconnects, that's the way it's supposed to be. So sometimes you get lazy, you know, maybe it's a temporary fix. It's a home game, so I don't care. So it's not going anywhere anytime soon, so I don't really care. But it's just, if you are working in the field of arcade games, don't do this. This is not the way you want to do stuff. And I've had games where I've seen games where no quick disconnects are on it. It's all soldered completely, and it's just like, you know, why go through the trouble of doing that when you could just put a quick disconnect on there and make it easy for everybody. So that is that there. And there, so I already finished the game. Your joystick is basic here. These joysticks, these are 8-way joysticks, and they are competition joysticks is what they call them. You can find them on SuzoHap or whatever website you buy your parts at. And they've got those same switches for these buttons they have on each one, and each one of these is a control. I can't take these out because they're screwed into the joystick, and they're supposed to be. That's just the way it works. But you got the pillar right here with the joystick, and then you have this little piece right here. Now, this is the piece that's probably you're going to probably either end up replacing. There are, hold on, let me get this piece off real quick. There are, you break this down, there's a little peg inside of these joysticks that have hold on, let me see if I can get this disconnected real quick.
He's taking off an E-clip, which if anybody's taking off an E-clip, there's a 50% chance it's going to disappear.
Yep. And never do this on a black floor, because once it's gone, that's it. You'll never see it again.
Can we show the E-clip real quick?
Yeah, here's the E-clip right here.
So everybody's seen one at some point.
Yeah.
They are notorious for flying off into the room
Yep.
and disappearing.
And I think I lost a piece. There it is. There it is. That's what I wanted to show. Okay, so I can show you the wear and tear on this. So this one's worn out too. So what this is this piece goes inside the joystick. It's just the piece that goes inside, but if you look at the edges here, that little beveled piece you see sitting on top there, it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be completely flush all the way around, but from joystick movement, it wears it down. And the easy thing to do is just take it and flip it over, which I did. And you can see on this side, it's even worse, because right now, this is the side it's probably on. It'll make gameplay not as good for people who are like competition players. So these are things that you want to change out every once in a while. If you have these types of joysticks, some of these use these still. A lot don't. If you have the the Wiko sticks, the ones for like the candy cabs and stuff like that, those ones, the Japanese ones, those ones are immaculate. I love those sticks, but they're not the same as these, because these are the ones these are American joysticks that we have. So there you go. Can you see that? Yeah. So when you get those arcade 1-ups, the reason they have sticks like this is because that's what we had in the States for our joysticks. But when you see those candy cabs down in the arcade and they have the little joysticks with the balls on them, that was the Japanese style. So Japanese had a completely different play than we did. So, but yeah, these are a pain to, like he was telling. Oh yeah, and this is another piece right here and basically the edges of this hit those switches, and that's what causes the joystick moving. It's an 8-way, so it's to the point to where when you push it to the corner, it actually hits both switches at the same time. This way you can get corner-wise. That's the way this one works. But the older stuff, like Pac-Mans and all those are 4-way joysticks, and you can't do that on those. So if you have a 4-way joystick in a Street Fighter, you'll never be able to do any moves on the game at all. What do you say? What about it? This one? Yeah, it's an 8-way stick. Yeah. Hold on, I'm gonna put this back together while you. Okay.
Any other questions so far? Yes. No, generally, so at this level, they're going to be pretty standard, and it's literally just let's get the wire to the switch. There is obviously a network of wires, a maze of wires that go inside the machine. And unfortunately, over the years, operators tended to go for profit over making sure the game was kept alive. So you will see a lot of tangled webs of wires within games. And you'll see a lot of different connectors or jumpers or all sorts of crazy stuff in there. So generally, things are standard, but that doesn't mean they will be when you get the game. So be prepared for stuff to be kind of crazy in there. Yeah.
So
What's going on with the space area or the floor downstairs? It seems like the insert coin button just doesn't push. Is it missing one of these parts?
So the insert coin button, we can actually, I don't think we have any coin mechs in here. You wanna, oh, you do? Yeah, so that's the coin mechanism. The coin mechanism is a physical thing. There. This is a little rusty. We'll show it on camera after this, but so you can see it up close. It's a physical contraption that is specifically built to take a quarter or a token. And when they take a quarter or a token, it falls through this mechanism and it falls out the bottom if it's a quarter. And if it's something that's not a quarter, it'll fall out the other side and go to the coin return. So usually when the coin return is stuck, it is a mechanical problem and not an electrical problem or anything like that. So this could be jammed with a Canadian quarter or something like that, and that causes a huge problem, and you have to go clear it before anything can work. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay. And you had a question?
Yeah, what do you do when the tube dies?
You want to start with tube stuff?
Yeah. Okay, so depending on your tube, because last year we did this, we actually did a repair for a tube, the TV tube. Here, I'm gonna spin this around real quick.
I asked because I have a Versus City and an Internet City at home, and one of the tubes is dead on the Versus when I got it.
Was dead when you got it?
Yeah.
So, was it was specifically the tube? You tested the tube and the tube was bad?
Yeah,
Okay.
I recapped the chassis, and I'm getting no color on the tube. Like the geometry, everything else is okay.
Oh, okay.
The color guns are dead. And when I was able to get an image from it, it was clearly a Street Fighter 2 cabinet at one point because the health bars are burned in.
Oh, really? Yeah, burn-in is something you can't do anything about burn-in for games. But burn-in is whenever you see games, like if you see the game is off, but you can see an image on the screen, that's burn-in. And a lot of the old games are like that. I'm sure my Street Fighter has that. I know my Poppin' Music downstairs has that has a burn-in from Poppin' 15, but it's now Poppin' like 27 or 8 or something. But yeah, okay, so this is the inside. That's your TV tube, and this is what he's talking about. Are you getting glow on the neck? Neck glow? But it's no picture on the screen, right? Okay, have you adjusted the the brightness? I mean, yeah. It's just different problems. It really depends on what's going on with it.
So to be specific as to what he was just talking about, the tube is literally like a vacuum tube you would see in an old stereo, except it's much bigger and runs at a very high voltage. We're talking kilovolts.
Or killer volts. That's
Yes. You always need to discharge a tube. That's the one safety thing that you should remember over all else. Make sure you discharge your tube. If you don't know how to do that, look it up on YouTube or something. There's plenty of great resources. The thing is, don't be afraid to do it. Just be cautious when you do it. So I fully encourage people to work on their own monitors. Just be cautious more than anything.
You also discharge it through your arm. You discharge it through your
We have a question back there.
Is it true though that you should not use screwdriver?
not use a what?
Only on certain vector games will it cause a problem. Other than that, you have been doing it for 20 plus years.
Yeah, I've never really messed with vector games. So all I've had done is raster games, which is all these Street Fighters, all the ones with the regular. But the vector games are the games like Tempest, Major Havoc, Asteroids. Those are all vector games, and the tubes on those are different than these tubes. And so those are the ones you have to probably be more careful with. I've never worked on any of those before, so.
And I know this sounds like we're going like deep into this tube versus that tube. It comes with experience. And if I'm going to sound like a broken record on one thing, it's that everybody in this room can do it. Don't be afraid because we're talking about vector versus raster, or maybe you don't even know what that means, and that's totally fine. It's all about practice and working through stuff and understanding what goes wrong. So please, please, please don't think twice about messing with this stuff. Again, just use caution.
Question?
I've heard of people discharging to the argument, putting one hand in your pocket as you do it. Is that important?
I've never done that before. I'm going to tell you the first time I ever discharged a monitor. This is when I was working at Chuck E. Cheese. I'll tell you the story. Basically, we got Mortal Kombat 3, but the screen on the Mortal Kombat 3 died. So we stole a monitor from a fighter's history game and put it inside Mortal Kombat, but we had to discharge it. And we talked to the guy who was this is when I first started, so I didn't know much tech work. The guy who was running tech, he told us, well, take some electrical tape, put it on a screwdriver and wrap it around it, and then put it on the metal frame. Like, this is the metal frame. This is what you're gonna wanna put it on. Put it on that, and then stick the screwdriver in there, and you're gonna hear a pop, and that's what you're gonna hear to discharge it. Me and him were so scared to do that because we thought we were gonna get electrocuted. So we literally were like arm in arm doing this. Me and this dude, 'cause we really wanted to play Mortal Kombat 3. It was new. We wanted to play it. So we're like, all right, if I get shot, you're getting shot. We did an arm in arm, bro, we got it, and it worked. And we switched the monitor out, and then we played Mortal Kombat 3, and it was great. And Fighter's History never got played again. So
Probably for the better.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, this is the monitor tube. This is the neck board. This is the main board, and this is how you get all your color and all the changes for color and everything like that, vertical hold and everything. And these are other color changes, like red, green, and blue is what you're going to be changing. And yeah, like I said, it's good to work on these. Just be careful. I mean, who's played The Sims? You ever played The Sims? How many people played The Sims and tried to fix a TV without reading the manual? And then you used to watch the guy get electrocuted, right? That's true. That's 100% true. So you want to be careful with the monitor. Don't be afraid to mess with it, but you're gonna just be careful with it. That's all we're saying. All right, so I'm gonna go on to the main board here. So this is the main boards for Street Fighter. There's two boards here. These are the two main boards, and there's a daughter board, not a daughter board. There's a kick harness, kick board. It's because Street Fighter has so many controls that it's got, the 6 buttons and the 8-way joystick, so it's like 4. It's got a lot of buttons. And the games back then, they didn't have enough room to run all that stuff, so they put an extra board on it, and that way you could get all the. So this is a kick harness right here. That's what this is for. And so this will add your other kicks and punches and stuff like that for the game. Make sure I plug that in the right way. I'll blow it up. No, I'm joking. Is that right? Okay, there we go. But that's all your extra buttons and everything right here. These are, and you have the ROM chips for these. Like, this is Street Fighter 2 Turbo Champion Edition. When I originally got this, there was a Street Fighter 2 regular board just sitting in here, and I gave that away to somebody. So, but yeah, this is the JAMA harness right here. This goes onto the board, and it feeds all the information to where it needs to go. It gets a power down here. You got your power cord. This is your power supply. This is what powers your game, obviously. Powers your game. And your monitor runs off an AC line. So this is an AC line, and then this is a DC power supply. But also, if you don't know what that means, it's fine. Just DC, AC, it's, like the band. But yeah, this is a power supply for giving all the game, it's 12 and 5 volts. So that's what this is for. And then you have your AC line, which goes, and this is what is that called again? It's a isolation transformer. Basically, people keep telling me that if you don't have this isolation transformer in there and you try to give this monitor power, it'll destroy the monitor. I've heard that, but I've seen it not happen, so I don't know what that's all about. But it is part of, it's the reason the monitor is working the way it is, and you need that in there, or else it's saying that it won't work. I don't know how that works, so. But, so there's two, I don't think I can take that off, can I? No, I don't think it's connected, so I was gonna try to pop the board out. I think I can take the daughter board off, though.
While he's doing that, we had a question over here.
How the monitor is actually laid out. I know terms like chassis like that tube, right? But how is it? What exactly is going on, and are they separate pieces that can be independently repaired or changed out?
So, this tube is separate from the electronics that power the tube. And apologies for the bad camera work, but the tube is separate from the electronics that power the tube, which is separate from the yoke and everything, which is this stuff that you can see sort of right here, if I can focus. There we go. And so basically all these components are independent. That doesn't mean they all can be replaced willy-nilly. You have to get the right components. You have to have the right chassis and the right neck board to work with the right tube. But you can actually take a tube from a donor TV and move it into a new arcade so that you can get your game working again. Now, they don't make tubes anymore, so you got to find the right TVs to be able to, as donor TVs, which is something that is becoming increasingly difficult as time goes on. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay, great. One more question back there?
Does that mean that if you had an oversized TV, you could just put the tube in from that and get a bigger picture? Or is that
No. So this is specifically meant to drive, what size is this? 19 inch? This is specifically meant to drive a 19-inch tube. Because this operates in extremely high voltages, it puts a lot of wear on the incoming voltages and things like that. So the components are rated specifically to drive a specific type of tube. And you need to stick with that. That being said, if you want to build your own cabinet, RGB voltages from an arcade are generally the same. So you could plug a much larger tube into an arcade board and build your own custom thing.
That's a lot of work. So you have to play around with that. All right, so this is the manual for the game, Street Fighter 2. It says Champion Edition because Turbo was an addition to it. So this is the manual for the game. And the manual always has all sorts of goody stuff in there, warranty information. But this is the part I wanted to show you is the dip switch setting. So this is how you set the game. You can't. A lot of times you'll go to a game, you'll play. Everybody's played games here, obviously, because we're at MAGFest. But you go into the menu for the game, and then you can change all your different settings in the game, and you can do whatever you want for the game. Well, they didn't do that back then. There was no test menu. You had to switch it to get it into the test menu, and all it really did was tested the inputs, tested the up, down, left, right, tested your buttons and everything like that. But you can go into test mode and it'll show you the graphics. It'll show you everything that you need to look at for the game. But this one actually gives you the settings for difficulty and for sound. Like I can have that a track sound. When you turn the game on, it'll play sound or it won't play sound. You can turn that. And that's the dip switches he's showing right there. I think on the screen there, yeah.
It's a little dark. Let me.
I got it, all right, yeah. There we go. But yeah, those are the dip switches. So you can go into different modes on that. And that's what this part of the book is for that I'm showing. That's all the settings that you can change things on. So you can change, like I said, the difficulty, speed. Sometimes they have the speed option. Oops. Good? Yeah.
Free play.
There you go. Free play. Yeah, that's what my machine is on free play right now. But if I were to ever put this in a location, I would have to set it to coins. And it says here that, and I can't see very well. So coin 1 and coin 2 is just telling you what coin mechs do. So coin 1 is the top one, switch A, dip switch A. Tells you 1 coin, 1 credit, and it tells you how to do that. And it tells you how to set it for 2 coins, extra credits, blah, blah, blah. It has all that information in there for. Or you can have it so it's free play. You can set it up so you can continue or not continue. It's how you want to set it up. It's up to you. But it has, and then when you go to the second one, that one is for difficulty, which is dip switch B. And that's for difficulty. Mine is always set to level 8 because I'm a beast. And then dip switch C, as you see right there, it says free play, screen stop, screen flip, sound during a track mode, which is when the game is not being played, it's going to play the Street Fighter tune for you. And but you can have that off or on. Some operators turn those off because they just trying to, stop it from being so loud in their arcade, which is dumb. You can see how loud the arcade is downstairs. So. Because everybody's playing stuff, but yeah. And then they have test mode. At the very bottom is test mode. So I'm going to flip it to test mode and then turn you around. I'll show you exactly what that looks like. So let me do that real quick. The game's off, right? I don't know, it's not on, is it?
The game?
Yes. I think it's off. See if
Yeah. Any questions? Let's start with you in the Nationals hat. Oh, there's some ditch switches that do nothing. Prevent the game from playing. Not often can you set the dip switches to prevent the game from playing, but that doesn't mean it's not possible.
This one you can.
Oh, this one you can apparently. Yeah.
There's a freeze setting on it. Well, it'll freeze the entire screen.
All right. Question real quick. Manuals and things like that is going to be, what's it? Yeah, the Arcade Museum, or KLOV, KLOV. Those are two great resources for arcade specifically. And let's get that other question since we... Oh, that door? Oh, absolutely.
All right. So there you go.
Oh,
Yeah. So now it's in a test mode right now. So I can check the colors to make sure. So if I redid the monitor and I'm done, I want to check the colors to make sure everything's good. Obviously, you can see this looks great. But this is how you test the monitor. And if I wanted to make any kind of adjustments, you would be looking at this screen to make sure everything's set right. And then dip switches. This one shows you what the dip switches are, but you can't change them here. So you have to manually change them down there. And this one tells you what everything's set to. Right here, you can see dip switch C. This last one right here says on, and that's the test mode. If I flip that switch right now, it'll say it's off. But the game will still stay in test mode until I shut the machine off and back on. And let's see. I don't want to do that one. And this is how you would, the cross pattern right here. So this is how you would, like when you, because if you look at my monitor, so I had this one repaired, and this is the best we could get it. If you look at the very bottom here, you see that where it says right there where it's black, and then you see like a big gap right there. You can change the width, but mine is, I can't change it any higher than that. And I'm fine with it, I don't have a problem with it, but that would be something you would try to get that blind to get to the very bottom. Something else needs to be done to it, but like I said, I'm not really concerned with it. It's fine, it works, so it's not really that big of a deal. Characters, now this one will show you all the different graphics and stuff. So this one shows you all the different graphics for the game, and you can test them out. So if you were to go to this and see an issue, like if you were having a screen, if the screen was glitching out where you're trying to play the game or whatever, and you see that, this will actually show you what it's showing. And it's basically going to whatever chip is associated with this character file and showing it on the screen. So
yeah, so remember that. These old games, no hard drives, so everything is stored in ROM chips.
Yep.
And so if a ROM chip goes bad, you're going to see some funky behavior on the screen. And so that's what causes that glitch it out look that you sometimes see in arcade games.
Yeah. And these aren't going to be exactly the same. Basically, it's telling you where it's located in the file. If you know anything about code, it's telling you these files, and it reaches the files. It's complicated. I can't explain it because it's not my thing, but this just shows you right here. You see all the characters here, and you got Ryu, and then you just keep going down, and more characters will show up, more objects will show up.
It's literally showing you what's in memory right now. So what's on the ROMs. It's reading it directly from that.
Yeah. Here's more. These are all the letters and numbers and everything like that. Extra little stuff there. Come on, there we go. And this one shows the stages right here. So you can see the different stages for the game. And they're just batch files for all the stuff here. It looks like crap now, but it's not. It's because we're in the test mode. But when you play the game, it's fine because it knows how to put it where it needs to go. And what's this one? Yeah, that's more of the scrolling backgrounds and stuff like that. So that is. There's nothing really to repair on Street Fighter. I thought it was a bigger issue. That's why I brought it. But I at least get to show you the stuff. And let me hear. Yeah, see if there is a question. I'll switch that back and see if it does it still.
All right, question, yes.
Chip gets messed up, do you ever rewrite it?
Yep, absolutely. ROM chips are not too difficult to get usually, and you can take ROM chips from other games and erase them if they are EEPROMs. So if they're erasable or electrically erasable, some of them have little windows on them that you use UV to erase, and you can reprogram them relatively easily if you have the right equipment, and it's something that you can do pretty regularly. One more question at the way back there.
Because the bar on the screen really goes back to the everywhere, just does it over and over, and pointing over and over as well. It's probably the bomb with the board itself.
It's probably a power supply issue.
Yeah, that's probably power supply. So I have a Miss Pac-Man downstairs, and the same thing you're telling me that happened was happening to mine. The game would boot up, it would roll through the opening part, all the test stuff, and then it would go to the game, but then you'd be playing the game, and it would stop, and it would start doing the same thing again, and garbled up the screen and whatnot. It's called a boot loop, is what's happening with yours, and usually it's power, and it's supposed to be 5 volts for that, but sometimes after power supplies get worn out, the voltages will go down, and once the voltage isn't the way it needs to be, it'll cause problems. If it's supposed to be 5.10 volts, and it's 5.5 volts, it'll cause an issue. If you have it 5.10 volts, but you have it at 515, it may be okay, but it's gonna start causing problems. So you can up the voltage a little bit to make it better. The only best thing to do is swap out the power supply. That's the easiest way to fix the issue, but that's pretty much what that is. I'm gonna show you this real quick, and then we'll do the pinball. Okay, so now you can see right here, my dip switch C is set to off, which is this test mode we're in right now. So now it's off, but I'm still in test mode. It didn't go out of test mode. The only way to get out of test mode is to switch the game off and then turn it back on, and then this boots up, it's giving you all the RAM stuff, and now it's back to the game, and it gives you all this warnings crap, and there you go. So now it's back to the game because, so that's Street Fighter, And so we're gonna do, he's gonna look at the pinball, I'll hold your camera.
All right. Actually, if you can take this mic out.
Okay, all right. Oh, you have one. You have a mic.
Yep. So, yes, it'll be good. So this pinball machine right here is down on the floor. It will be down on the floor again after this. It has a wonderful problem. So pinball machines have things called coils. Coils is what powers anything that interacts with the ball. So if you have a sling and you see the ball fly off of it, if you have a flipper and the flipper switch, it's a coil. And that coil is there to basically take high power and turn it into an electrical field that is able to shoot a piston out and move the ball. What happens though is that these are coils of wire, and they're coils of wire with really thin wire. And if you activate these things over and over and over again, hundreds of times, thousands of times, what will happen is the coils themselves or the electrical components that power the coils can go bad. So the coils can melt, or the little strands of wire can melt together, causing a short, or it just out of time wears out and the coil shorts. And when the coil shorts, first thing you notice, and anybody who wants to stick around after can come up and smell the machine. You can actually smell burning. That is the number one sign that something is wrong. If something is burning, it's not correct. So that being said, what happens is you don't just need to replace the coil, you need to replace all the electrical components or most of the electrical components going to the coil. So I was starting to take it apart, but we kind of ran out of time. If you look at all of these little guys, these are transistors. You can think of transistors as an electrical switch for anybody who doesn't know. It is an electrical switch, and basically you apply a little bit of current or voltage, or you apply electricity. Let's stick with that. You apply electricity to the transistor. It opens up and allows flowing through the transistor, which will activate the solenoid. And so when you do that, the solenoid activates. However, if the transistor shorts itself, it will always allow electricity to flow, locking that coil on and destroying the coil. So when I go through this, I'm going to have to replace the coil itself. I'm going to have to replace the coil with the correct coil because there's many different coils in pinball machines. They all have numbers. So luckily, you can do a little internet sleuthing and match them up real easy and get the right one. You can put it in, and then you have to replace, if you look at this, and I think, yeah, we could see it. We have a transistor here. We have a pre-driver transistor here. And then we have a diode and a couple resistors. Now the main thing to replace is the transistor. So if you have a broken solenoid on your machine that is shorted and locking on, that means it's going to be blowing fuses. That means it's going to smell. In the worst case scenario, you will get blackened, burning. You don't want to let it go that far unless you really can't find it and you have to. But
yeah, I had one of those boards on my machine exploded when I got it. And I ended up having all those components you're looking at. I had to replace every single one of them. And it's 20 different solenoids. So 20 of those transistors, each one of those, and then all that stuff that's on I had to replace every single one of those. And it's a pain in the ass, I'll tell you that.
Yes, it's quite a bit of work. we have some specialty tools. We have my favorite tool, a desoldering gun. We'll get to your question in just a second. A desoldering gun, you don't need this. This is an expensive tool. You do not need this. And I will tell you this because this is true for all of arcades. You do not need expensive tools to work on arcades. The more you dig into it, the sort of more you need tools. The more you do it, the more you're going to want tools. But desoldering braid is an excellent choice. It's the carbon braid that you can get pretty much anywhere. You can get it on Amazon, but it is a perfectly legitimate, wonderful way of desoldering. I am lazy, so I use a gun with a pump. So yes, what I would do is desolder this transistor. I would probably desolder the pre-driver, and then I would at least desolder the diode and test the diode to make sure it works. So if you have a game and you just bought a game and a coil is frying, make sure not just to replace the coil, because you will end up in a situation where you fry a new coil, and new coils can range from $20 to $40, which is a lot of money to just watch go up in literal smoke. So that is something that you definitely want to take a look at. Okay, we had a question? Yeah.
Relating to the transistors,
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there's an instance where you have a game that's got utilizing transistors that are no longer being produced. I'm wondering if you can use a similar transistor and making different capacitance and then swapping out the capacitors and diodes with respect to that. So,
Yes. So the internet is definitely your friend. One second. And you can look at it for equivalence. So there's lots of obsolete parts out there. Tons of obsolete parts. You can usually find a modern equivalent to it that is a direct replacement. So TIP 102 is a common transistor. We generally replace those with TIP 120s because they are better transistors. They're a little beefier. And that's just something, as you go along, as you do your internet research, you will see people say that online, and so you will be able to do it yourself. You had a question?
what if I need to do work on the playfield or underneath the playfield?
That's a great question. Let's go ahead and show you under the playfield with our last few minutes here, and then we will just get to questions. First thing you do when messing with a pinball machine and you want to do the playfield, take out the balls. Even the most experienced pinball mechanic will forget sometimes, and when you hear that ball fall, you just go, oh no, I hope it didn't break something. But these are designed to be open. They're designed to be fixed. So they have a nice mechanical mechanism to be able to open them up and open the playfield. This looks like a chaos of wires. It is not. Each one of these wires is color-coded. The manual for this game will tell you where each one of these wires goes, what it's supposed to connect to, and what you can do to basically make sure that it is connected in the right place. So, this is actually a coil. If we can we get a picture of that? Okay, cool. So this is a flipper coil. This is a bigger coil. So that's what they look like. They all kind of look the same. They're just bigger or smaller. You will see a nice crustiness to them if they're broken. That doesn't mean it's always the case. Usually you have to take a multimeter, which is the one tool you do need as a arcade or pinball restoration person. But it doesn't have to be an expensive multimeter. But you will need a multimeter. You will need to learn how to use a multimeter. It's very simple. Most of them are automatic, almost everything these days for 99 bucks online. So you can get great meters for very cheap. But these coils generally have a resistance of about 3 to 10 ohms, which is very little. But if they have 0, you know they're shorted and you have to replace it and replace that transistor just like I talked about. Yes?
Sometimes flippers, they'll sort of slow down and they'll lose their power over time.
Yes. That is a mechanical issue. So that is a mechanical issue. There is something called a coil stop and there is a piston that goes in and out of the coil. So the coil pushes the piston and the piston hits the coil stop. So imagine a piece of metal slamming against another piece of metal thousands of times. Eventually they deform And as they deform, the flipper will get weaker and weaker and weaker until you replace those parts. So there are mechanical parts in a pinball machine that do need replaced. Just like joysticks need cleaned, pinball machines need adjusted every once in a while, and the flipper is rebuilt. Oh, it might have died or something.
It says no image.
Okay, I think we've gotten past most of the parts that need the camera. So, I think that's. Oh, we got a nice image stuck up there. Yeah. So I think that's. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about with respect to pinball machines?
Yeah, these a lot of places don't do pinball. Like if you go to Dave and Buster's, I'm like, hey, let's get some pinballs. Nah, they're too complicated. I'm like, no, they aren't. Like they tell you in the book how to fix it, especially the older pinballs. The older pinballs told you everything. My pinball machine came with 2 manuals. It came one specific for the game, but they gave you a general pinball thing that told you, hey, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. It gives you all the information. It pinpoints every single, like almost like a grid. It gives you an exact location of what component that you need to replace. It tells you if this happens, replace this component. If this happens, try this, do this, try these different things. It tells you.
And places like PinWiki and things like that have a wealth of knowledge. People have dove into these boards and circuitry so much that the theory of operation is pretty much completely known at this point. So you can fix any board. And there are replacements out there too if you want to go that route. We like to keep things original, but so we like to fix the boards. But if I have something on location and I need it to be up, I can get a replacement board for most boards within most games these days. Yeah. But the theory of operation and everything about a pinball board is very, very, very well known.
Yeah, it's I should have brought mine up, but I didn't. But I had my main board for my pinball machine. It wasn't working. I tried everything I could. I talked to a bunch of people, couldn't get it working. We just could not, for the life of me, get it working. So I bought a replacement board. Now this replacement board is a multi-board. Like the pinball machines between, say, 1979 and 1985 all used the same basic board, but they all had different chips in them that did certain things. Well, I didn't want to do that. I just got a multi-board, and this one holds the information for 20 different pinball machines. And those dip switches I was talking about earlier, all you have to do is change the dip switch to whatever version of your game it is, and it'll automatically do everything your game did. But it's a smaller board, and it's just more compact. And it's kind of expensive. I don't know, it's like $250, $300 for that board, but it's way better than trying to fix your board or trying to get a new board or find one on eBay, because if you try to find that same board on eBay, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to get that board. It's a lot easier to just buy a multi-board and just use that instead. And it has all the same connectors and everything for you, and it's a lot easier to work with.
Yeah. So yeah, we got 9 minutes left, so we're going to take questions from here on out, and you're the first one.
When you're working on that transistor board, do you demount it? Do you work on it while it's up there? How does that work?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I did that last time when I fixed mine. So some components you can measure while it's in it, but a lot of them you can't. You have to take it out and to find out. That was what was taking me so long when I was telling you I was fixing my board. I had to take each one out to find out if it was working, measure it, and if it was working, I can put it back, or I would just replace it completely. For the most part, I would just replace the thing, and I just put a new one in there. But some you can, and a lot you can't. Like caps, you can't do. You have to have the cap out to test it, right?
Yeah, you have to have a capacitor out to test it. Basically, testing things in circuit can be difficult, especially things like transistors. It's much easier to desolder them and test them properly. And it takes, once you get used to desoldering, it takes a very short amount of time to desolder a component to test it to make sure it works. And that's a good point. There is the shotgun approach to fixing something where you just replace as many components as possible, cross your fingers, and hope it works. What's a better method of doing it is making sure you pull a component, you test it, confirm it's bad, so that when you fix it, you fix the right thing.
Yeah.
Because you can cover up other problems by just replacing stuff with a shotgun style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Multimeters are good at testing components.
Yeah.
There's transistor testers. There's we have special tools for testing monitors and things like that. Everything can be tested.
And if you need help, just YouTube it, because they'll tell you. I've had it where I'm like, I don't know how to measure this. Let me see if I can figure this out. Can't figure it out. YouTube has a 1-minute video telling me all the information I need, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that was a lot easier. Okay, now I know how to do this for the rest of my life, type of thing. So, It's good to learn. It's good to learn. Anybody got? Oh, right there.
Absolutely. You can socket a transistor. I don't personally socket transistors because I don't like the transistor sockets that are available on the market. But with things like chips, if you replace a chip and you don't socket a chip, you're going to make me mad.
So yeah, socketing it is what it's saying is instead of actually having it so you solder it into the spot, you take a socket and put it and solder that into the spot, and then take the chip and put it in there. That way, if the chip goes bad, instead of you having to desolder it, you just pull the chip, kind of thing.
Yep.
That's basically what it is.
It's future-proofing your own work.
But it's it's better. I wouldn't say it's better, but it's just I don't know. It depends on who you are, how you want to do it. So I saw two questions. Oh, right there.
Do you ever find it hard to find people that do play field and backglass restoration?
There are a number of people that do that. They are not cheap, but they are phenomenal. There's some people up in New York that do it. And there is, if you look up TNT Pinball does it. They have lots of really fun videos on their machines. It's a great YouTube channel just for looking at games and stuff. But they do art restoration. There's some places in New York that do art restoration. Art restoration is a very difficult thing to do. And we're electronics people. If you hand me a paintbrush, I don't know what to do with it. So I leave that to other people. But yes, there are people out there who will restore a game for you.
Yeah. Somebody else up here. Oh, that was you?
Oh, yeah. Let's get to the back after this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get started with collecting these pinball machines. If I went out and found one, I was looking at getting it for myself.
If you found one, yeah.
What would be some stuff to look for? If I could open it up like this to tell if it's in generally good working order, or if it would be a huge headache and I would have to tear a bunch of stuff out. What are some warning signs?
Burned coils is one of the things you're going to want to look for. When I got mine, they had got it, and I guess it got repaired, but it had a bunch of the original coils in it. And the first thing I noticed also you have any of those rubber pieces in yours? No, you don't have any extras?
No, not here.
Okay, so these, so the little rubber slingshots, those ones, when I got mine, a bunch of them were rotted. I guess the machine had just been sitting in a hot basement, and just rotted away all the rubber pieces that bounced the ball all over the place. The coils is another thing you're going to look at. And just look for anything that you see that's loose. Like if you saw this connector here, but you saw this wire was not on, look for, once you see a wire not on something, you're going to want to look for every single one. Because if you see one off, you're going to see it off all over the place.
Okay, so I think Blue Mask?
Kind of a similar question. For someone that's new to this, what recommendations do you have for certain machines to buy or certain eras of machines to buy and where to get them?
So the one caveat that I will talk about our thing, we have done what's called solid state pinball machines, electrical mechanical pinball machines, and electromechanical arcade machines. They're wonderful. They are a totally different beast. They all operate on relays. All of the logic is in relays. So if you, I will say a solid state pinball machine for me is easier to work on. So
but not for me, because I'm a chip dude. I do that. I've seen electromechanical. I've seen those get repaired. It's amazing because there's no computer information in there. There's nothing to tell it what to do. It depends on what your ball hit, and it basically has a couple wheels inside, and the wheels turn. If you hit something, it turns it, and it's just really complicated. I don't know much about those ones, but I'll work on these ones all day. These are fine.
All right, we have time for about 2 more questions. So can we take the purple bandana?
Yep, you.
Thanks for doing this. So I have a Neo Geo monitor.
Yeah.
And the picture looks great, but once in a while it'll just collapse to black, and then it'll come back. And it'll collapse again, come back. The idea is we adjusted, me and my buddy adjust that.
It's probably the vertical chip, vertical IC.
Could be. The whole thing collapsed to black?
Is it like a line going across or up and down? Oh, you get the little white dot in the middle? Yeah. I know what you're talking about. That's. Have you capped the whole board before?
No, I just got
Okay, so yeah, it's probably just a lot of times when you get monitors, if any monitor has a problem and you just get it, a lot of times people will tell you just recap it. They sell a kit online where you can just buy, and it's every capacitor that's in it, and that's called a cap kit. And if you do that, and sometimes a lot of that will solve a lot of your issues right there. Is to replace all the caps for it. That's just way easier to just do that. Yeah, there was that guy way back there. Yep.
What are your thoughts on 60 and 1, 400 summon one?
I have one, and I got it like that. I don't have a problem with those, but that's not something it's something you could take to like a smaller convention where people are just going to want to play games. I'm fine with those, but I really love original hardware. Yeah, original hardware for me. You know, I'm not a purist or anything, but 16.1 I'm fine with. I have a machine at home that has Pandora's box in it that has like 3,000 games on it. I'm fine with that for me, you know, but most of my games are original hardware. So.
And at MAGFest in our arcade, we generally require original hardware. That being said, stuff slips through. We have a lot of games down there. Sometimes we need to play a game for a tournament or something, but we do like original hardware. We like to keep things as original as possible, just to keep that history alive.
Yep.
Yes, you. Yellow Mask, I think. Yeah.
Last and how difficult it is to actually condition it or replace it.
What was that question? The actual play surface of the wood. What about it? How hard is it to take care of? Oh, yes. So the biggest thing, and that's actually a very good question and a great thing to end on, for any arcade, pinball machine, whatever, keep it clean.
Yeah.
Keeping it clean is such an important way to make sure that your playfield, especially if it's a pinball machine, make sure your playfield does not get ruined. So we've all seen playfields that have been in bars for 20 years where they never clean the game, and there is lines where the pinball goes. There is parts of the playfield missing near the slingshots and stuff like that. Cleaning a game with something like, even if you just do a basic simple green clean, that is fine. Just make sure you clean your game. You can wax your game, you can wax the playfield, you can do all sorts of stuff to adjust how it plays. But the biggest thing, and it goes for arcades too, because you want to keep those joysticks clean, you want to keep the buttons clean, and keep the inside of your cabinet clean so we don't find any.
Yeah, and keep the drinks off the games too. That's a big killer right there, because somebody spills a beverage onto it, it gets inside the buttons. Yeah, they'll work for a little while, but once that stuff starts drying up and gets all sticky, then your buttons start sticking, and you open it up, and it's just nothing but soda inside of it. It's just crazy.
Nothing but soda.
Yeah, and especially don't leave it in machines downstairs. Don't put any drinks on those ones, because
Yes.
those collectors will be very angry, right? Collectors.
Yes, we will be.
Yeah.
And with that, thank you all so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Feel free to come up while we're
Thank you.
packing.
Appreciate it.
And perform the sniff test if you want to.